So this is a study that is in which we compared the primary tumor sample and the recurrent tumor sample from the same patient. So we brought together a small cohort, because these are very hard to collect, these types of tumor samples. A small cohort of 23 cases, and then again we did molecular profiling, like exome sequencing, genome, whole genome sequencing, RNA sequencing, and so forth. And then with that data set, we tried to understand why are recurrent GBMs, because this was GBM only, why are they more resistant to chemotherapy? The data set that we think is most useful in answering that question is our whole genome data set, our whole genome sequencing data set. So we use the whole genome sequencing data set to identify subclones, sets of tumor cells that are different to each other, and that may have, because of those differences, may have competitive advantages when they are pressured. That may lead to the tumor recurrence, and it may explain why the tumor recurrence is chemo-resistant. So we did that analysis. Again, we only had 10 patients, so it was not easy. That's not really enough to get to significant p-values. But we found a number of interesting patterns. For example, in 2 out of the 10, we observed that the tumor recurrence was initiated by what we call an ancestral tumor cell. This is a tumor cell that is probably a very early progenitor of the primary tumor, but then also is a progenitor for the recurrent tumor, which makes the primary and the recurrence cousins of each other. So it's not like the primary directly leads to the recurrence, they're cousins. We found this in 2 out of 10. In 4 additional samples, we saw what we call clonal evolution. So this is a situation where you have multiple subclones in the primary tumor. You look at the tumor recurrence and you see that one of those subclones has taken over the tumor. So we observed that in 4 out of 10. And in the final 4, we saw more confusing patterns that we can't really explain. So in that study, we, I think, show that the ancestral evolution takes place in glioblastoma, but also that clonal evolution takes place, and even that there's more complex patterns.